Welcome to Greg Hansen's Video Notebook, brought to you by Hughes Federal Credit Union. I'm Star Sports Editor Ryan Finley, here with Greg Hansen. Greg, we've been talking about this football team and this football season. Seems like for, since February, spring ball? Finally, they kick off their season. Wildcats host NAU Saturday at Arizona Stadium. Any expectations, and what are you looking for as they open their season?
I disagree with the part where you said we've been talking about this since February. I don't think many people have been talking about it.
Okay, there was basketball season, then there was the summer. At least since camp opened 2.5 weeks ago, we've been talking about it.
Yeah. Expectations. I think in all the years I've been here, there's probably fewer expectations going into this year than any. Yeah.
It's strange because you're not going to learn anything by playing NAU.
No.
Right? You're not going to learn anything really by playing UTEP 2 weeks later either. But we can still take things from those games. What positions and what will you be watching on Saturday?
You know, they've got all these first-year guys. Some of them will play. 12 or 14 will play. I want to see if they're physical. I want to see if they're big enough.
Right.
Jalen Harris, you know, Sean Harris's son, Desert Swarm guy. I want to see if he's ready to play yet, because he's got to be.
Right, right.
And you get through these 3 games now, maybe with minimum turbulence. Houston won't be that way.
Right.
But then suddenly they play Utah, the most physical team in the league.
Yeah. The biggest, oldest, most physical team in the league.
That's their Pac-12 opener.
Right.
I mean, if you're not physical and ready to go in 3 weeks, I mean, you're going to get flattened.
Well, and here's what's funny, too. You know, Rich Rodriguez talks about the hard edge thing a lot, but I think he's been more cautious in terms of hitting in camp. I mean, you lose, on average, a starter or two a year because of that, and naturally you're going to be more cautious. Is that the right play with this team, do you think?
Maybe running scared is not the wrong term, but it's something related to that.
Right.
Their one big physical defensive player, DeAndre Miller, hasn't played.
Right.
He got hurt.
Yep.
Beyond that, they got a bunch of guys who aren't Utah.
Right, right, right. If they're talented, they're young.
Yeah.
And the older guys aren't guys who necessarily...
They're not big guys.
Not big guys. Is there one guy on this team, offense or defense, who you might project for big things?
You know who I think their most talented player is on the whole team? Shun Brown.
Yeah, you love him.
He's this big.
Yeah.
I mean, does that work in the Pac-12?
Mike Thomas made it work.
Yes, yes. If he's like Mike Thomas, it works. But that's what I'm curious to see. When I was driving here today, the U of A football practice had just let out, and I was driving, and the players were walking by, and I saw Parker Zellers, their starting nose tackle.
Right.
I was still marveled that he's not that big.
Right. He's not that big. He's my size.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. For me, by the way, as an aside, I'm looking at 2 guys. I'm looking at Brandon Dawkins. Notably, can Brandon Dawkins complete a pass? Secondly, I'm looking at Demetrius Flanagan-Foles. He's a guy who, if we're talking about sort of the template for these new players coming in, it's Demetrius Flanagan-Foles. Thrown into the fire as a freshman, showed some promise. They stuck with him, and now he's a leader as a junior, I believe.
Yeah, junior.
This is a guy who I think looks the part. There aren't a whole lot of players on this team right now that look the part. I
mean, you hear the thing about training camp is you get sucked in.
Right.
Because there's really no bad news, because you're playing against bad players. You're playing against second stringers.
Right, right. You're playing yourself. Yeah.
So all the news that comes out of training camps are good unless you have an injury. And so who gets sucked in the most?
Right.
Are you sucked in?
I'm semi-sucked in. I know that as a beat reporter, I used to get totally sucked in.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Is that by the time the season opened, I went, there's no reason they can't go 8-4, 9-3. And then, you know, they get thumped by Oklahoma State in Stillwater. Yeah. We're sitting there next to Ricky Fowler on the sidelines going, oh, shoot, they just lost by 60. Yeah, this team's not very good, you know?
Yeah, so the moments of truth will come soon enough. Are they ready for them? Against Houston, we'll see some of that.
Right. Excited isn't the right word, but are you eager to see what all this is all about?
Oh, yeah, man. Don't you love college football Saturdays?
Yeah.
Weekends? Yeah, even though it's an 8 o'clock start and it'll be 100 degrees, I can't wait.
That'll do it for this episode of Greg Hansen's Video Notebook, brought to you by Hughes Federal Credit Union. For Greg Hansen, quick question. Thunder and lightning delay? It's almost a tradition for the opener. You think we're going to have some on Saturday?
I've been praying all week for a cloud to appear somewhere. That cloud will show up at 8 o'clock on Saturday.
Knowing your luck, it'll get overcast and rainy right about 8 p.m. I'm Ryan Finley. We'll see you next time.